Hi there, my name is Ben with You Need a Budget, and today I'm going to be showing you how to set up your budget in YNAB and walk you through the basics of how to use it. So that today you can go to the store knowing that you have a plan for your money and understanding how YNAB is going to help you follow through on that plan. Now, if you're going to be setting up your budget along with me in this video, then there's a few things you might want to have on hand before you get started. First is all of your bank account logins. So checking, savings, credit cards, any of that stuff, you want that on hand so you can add those in as you go. Two, you're going to want a list of all of your monthly bills, things that come due regularly like your rent or your internet, your utilities, whatever. You're going to want to write down how much they cost and when they come due during the month. Now, if you have bills that fluctuate from month to month, like your electric bill, then just write down kind of a little higher than the average, and that should do just fine. And then finally, you want a list of your non-monthly bills. These are things that have deadlines, but don't happen on a monthly cycle. Things like holiday gifts, annual subscription, annual fees, car registration, insurance, taxes, AAA, all kinds of stuff. Don't worry about getting every single one of these down, but the more of these you get down to start, the less work you're gonna have to do on the back end. All right, so we wanna start by creating a plan in YNAB. And we do that by creating a category for every expense and then creating a target for every category. Now, a target is just how much money you want to dedicate to that specific expense. So it could be how much money you want to spend on groceries this month, or it could be how much money you want to save towards your vacation this month. So to set our targets in the mobile app, we can hit this little pen button right here, and that takes us to this edit screen. Now here we can edit titles by selecting them. So for instance, I'm just going to have this say rent instead of mortgage or tent. And then I can select this number to set my target. Now you see I have a few options here. I'm going to choose monthly because my rent comes due every month. And I'm going to tell YNAB when my rent comes due. And then I'm going to tell it how much it costs every month. If I hit enter, now YNAB knows how much my rent is and when it comes due. Now let me show you how to do the exact same thing in the web app. So let's do my electric bill. I'm going to select that category and then come over here to create target. I'm going to tell YNAB how much I need, make sure it's a monthly target because this happens once a month, and then tell YNAB when it comes due. And now my electric bill is part of my plan. Now, some expenses happen on more of a weekly cycle, like groceries. So let's say I want to set a weekly target for groceries. I want $100 every week, and we generally shop on Fridays to fill up at the end of the week. If I save that weekly target, now it says I need $400 this month. Now it gets that number by taking my weekly target and multiplying it by the number of Fridays in June. So there are 4 Fridays in June times 100, that's $400 this month. If I click ahead to July, there's actually 5 Fridays in July this year, so I'm gonna need $500 instead. So this is a nice way to make sure you're not over or under budgeting for those weekly expenses. Now we're going to come back to the mobile app to show you one more type of target because not all expenses happen on a monthly or a weekly cycle. For instance, my AAA membership renews every year. So for that, I'm going to come down to my non-monthly category group, hit that plus sign to create a new category. Going to put in the name of the category. And then when I need to pick a target, I'm going to pick by date. So then I tell YNAB when this comes due. For us, that's going to be March 10th of next year. And since this happens every year, I'm going to set it to repeat every year. And then finally, I tell YNAB how much I'm going to need. And now YNAB is going to tell me how much money I need to set aside every month in order to have money saved up for this bill when it comes due in March. So that's a really nice way to take those kind of bigger non-monthly bills and break them down into more manageable chunks. So now our next step is to create a category for every expense and then put a target on every category. That might sound like a lot of work, but it's going to save us a lot of time on the back end. And listen, we recommend start simpler with fewer categories so that you don't get overwhelmed right off the bat. All this is changeable, so if you need to add more categories in later, you can certainly do that. And at some point, if you need to get rid of a category, let me show you how to do that. You can always just edit the title of a category to something more relevant to you. But if you just want to get rid of it, you can hit that minus sign and you get that delete screen. If you want to do that in the web app, you can just select the title of the category and you get that same delete screen there. So I've jumped a bit ahead here to show you what a completed budget looks like. You'll notice that I've got yellow on all of these categories. That's a sign that I've put a target on each and every one of them. So now I'm going to organize my budgets, my monthly bills, into due date order. So I'm just going to drag and drop them using these due dates here as my guide. And you can do this exact same thing in the mobile app by picking them up on those 3 lines. And there we go. I have a budget that is organized and ready for action. Okay, so we've set up a plan in YNAB, but before we talk about how we use that plan, I'm gonna give us an image that I think is helpful when you're starting out with YNAB. I want you to imagine that when you get paid, instead of getting a paper paycheck or a direct deposit, you just get a big wad of cash. And instead of just putting it all in your bank account and saying, I'll decide what to do with that later, you put that cash into envelopes. Now, each envelope has a specific purpose. Some are for expenses, others are for savings. But you're gonna stuff each and every one of those dollars into a specific envelope based on what you need your money to do. Now, when your rent comes due, you're gonna grab your rent envelope and pull the money out of there. When you go to the grocery store, you're gonna take your groceries envelope with you. And if you need to spend more on groceries than you have in that envelope, you're gonna need to move that money from another envelope to cover it. And then the next time you get paid, you repeat that process. Now, YNAB is a digital envelopes system. We let you still put your money into your bank account, but our categories basically function as those envelopes. When you fund a category, it's like you're putting dollars into one of your envelopes. And when you spend, it's like you're taking money out of one of your envelopes. So at this point, we've basically written the title of each envelope on the front, and we've written about how much money we want to put in each envelope. But we haven't actually put any dollars in them yet. So let's look at how to do that. So I'm gonna go down to accounts and hit add. When I do this, I get a couple options. Now a linked account is where I enter my bank login into YNAB, and if we have a connection with your bank, then whenever a transaction clears your bank account, it'll beam into YNAB using the power of lasers, and then you'll have it ready to budget. But if you'd rather do the work yourself or your bank doesn't have lasers, then you can do an unlinked account, and I'm gonna show you how to do that just because it requires a little more work. And you wanna enter your cleared balance. And now under accounts, we'll see my checking account is now there. I can select it to see all of the transactions that have happened there since I entered the bank account. In this case, that's just our starting balance. So now if I go to my budget, I can see those $690 at the top, ready to assign. So let's see what happens if I hit that auto assign button. Now, whenever you assign dollars in YNAB, you're gonna use one question to guide that process. And that question is this: what does this money need to do before I get paid again? What does this $690 need to do before I get paid again? Now, when I hit auto assign, YNAB looks at my plan and it tries to answer that question for me. It says, according to the targets you've set, I think this is what you need your money to do before your next paycheck. So let's see how it's done. Today is the 23rd of June and I get paid again on the 2nd. So let's see. My phone bill on the 1st, the 5th, the 15th, the 17th, all those bills have already come and gone because today's the 23rd. So it hasn't budgeted anything there. However, I have not yet paid my bills on the 25th and the 27th, and both of those happened before my next paycheck, so it's slotted money there. That's good. It's also covered about a week's worth of groceries, gas, and church giving, which makes sense. I have about a week of all of those things before I get paid again on the 2nd. It's also covered some of my other important savings categories like auto maintenance and medical, and we see it's also covered my weekly date night. So YNAB does all this assigning for you, but what's really neat is that you can tweak this if you'd rather have your money doing something else. So for instance, I know that since I'm getting paid again on the 2nd, YNAB doesn't actually know when I'm getting paid. I know that phone bill on the 1st of July is gonna come due before my next paycheck. So I need to move some money up there. So I'm gonna look in here and see where I don't need money right now. And I think miscellaneous house items is gonna be a good place to pull from. We've only got 1 week left, so I think we can get away with like a quarter of that category there. So now you see I've got $75 now ready to assign. Let's see what else. We're really not buying any more clothing this month, so I'm gonna take money from out of there. I'm gonna do the same thing with gifts because I don't have any birthdays coming up. And I think that's good. That gives me $129 to play with right now. So I'm gonna go ahead and put $66 to cover that phone bill because that is a must. I've got $63 left. I'm gonna use that to cover some of my non-monthly expenses that have deadlines. So my AAA subscription, my credit card annual fee. I like to cover these things because they have these set deadlines. And if I don't cover them this month, I'm gonna have to catch up in future months. 41, 42. I think I will put some into stuff I forgot to budget for just because it's the very end of the month. You never know what's going to happen. And then the rest of this, I think I'm going to put towards that insurance because that'll help me. I won't have to play quite as much catch up with that insurance later. So now if I hit apply, if I look at the right-hand column on my budget, it tells me exactly how much money is available in each of those categories. So I see that all of these bills I need to cover are ready to go. I have a week's worth of each of these weekly expenses, so on and so forth. So I've taken all those dollars and stuffed them into envelopes. And I can look at this column to see how many dollars are in each envelope. All right, so we've made a plan. We've assigned the dollars that we have. So now let's look at spending. Let's say my wife, Maddie, and I decide to go out to dinner to celebrate the fact that we just made a budget. Well, I'm gonna take my dining out envelope with me, but of course I don't need to take a physical envelope. I just take my handy dandy phone and scroll down to my dining out category in YNAB, and that right-hand number there is gonna tell me how many dollars are currently available in that envelope. So given that this is our last date night of the month, we're gonna spend $40. Now when it comes time to pay, we're gonna hit that little transaction button down there and enter how much we spent. Now, we bought $40 worth of food, but we forgot about a tip. Okay, well, we wanna make sure we're still generous tippers, so we're gonna wind up paying $50 instead. We're gonna tell YNAB where that money is going. For us, that's the Black Stag Brewery. And we're gonna tell it what category that is coming out of. So of course, dining out. Once we got all that information, we can hit save. And now you can see that $50 has left our dining out category, meaning we've overspent that category by $10. So now's a good time to talk about what the colors mean in this app. And a good way to think about it is like a traffic light. So going back up here, if I see green at an intersection, that means I'm good to go. I can just go straight through, no worries. Same thing in YNAB. If I see a category that's green, that means that I have fulfilled my target for that category. I said I was gonna pay $49.95 for my internet, and I have that money set aside, so I don't have to worry about that category anymore. Now, yellow, if you see that at an intersection, it means you need to pay attention, right? Maybe you need to slow down and stop, or maybe you can make it, but you need to pay attention to what's going on, right? Now in YNAB, that just means you haven't put enough money in that category to fulfill your target. Now, that's not always bad, right? With these weekly categories, my groceries, my transportation, my church giving, because we started this budget toward the end of the month, we didn't need the full month's worth of groceries in there. We only put in a week because that's how much grocery money we need until the end of June. So again, it's not bad to have yellow. It just means you wanna look and make sure that that's really what you want to be happening in that category. And then finally, there is red. If you see red at an intersection, it means stop. And in YNAB, it means stop and fix this. Because until I cover this overspending in this category, the rest of my budget is gonna be off. There's just $10 coming from some category right now, I don't know which one, that is throwing off the rest of my budget. Now, when that happens, I don't need to feel guilty and cry. I just need to find money to cover that overspending. So I come up here to overspend categories, and now I just choose a category that matters to me less than that dinner with my wife. And lucky for me, we put some money into stuff I forgot to budget for. That's gonna be perfect. So I move that $10 into the dining out category and problem solved. No guilt required. Next, we're gonna look at how to enter a paycheck. But before we do that, I want to address a question that you might have. I said that I'm getting paid in about a week on the 2nd. So you might be wondering, why don't I go ahead and just enter my next paycheck? I don't think I'm gonna lose my job between now and the 2nd. And if I did that, I'd have a lot more green in my budget, and I might not have had to deal with all that overspending shenanigans with my date night. So why don't I go ahead and enter that paycheck? Well, it's because of another important YNAB mantra. We only budget the dollars we have right now. Now, why do we restrict ourselves that way? Well, remember, when we went out on that date night, I said that we figured out how much we could spend by looking at our dining out category and looking at that available to spend number. I said it was like we opened up our dining out envelope and looked in to see how many dollars there were. Now, if we were using a physical cash envelope system, if I look into my envelope, I can't pull out dollars that haven't been paid yet, right? There are no back to the future dollars that I can hand to a server, right? And that's a bummer because it would be nice to have those dollars available to me. But on the positive side, whatever money is sitting in that envelope, I know I have that money, and I know that money is set aside specifically for dining out. In the same way, when we only budget the dollars we have, we can look at our categories, look at that available to spend number, and know that those dollars are actually available for me to spend on that thing. I can spend $100 on groceries, $35 on gas, $75 on church giving. I can do all of that and not get in the way of paying my internet bill, not overdraw my bank account, because I know I have those dollars and I know I set them aside for that specific purpose. Now, this isn't really traditional old school budgeting that you might have learned in the past. Old school budgeting says that at the beginning of the month, you write down everything you're gonna need for the month based on what you hope you make, and that this is your budget. I mean, look at all that green. Doesn't that make you feel good inside? Well, it shouldn't, because this budget is full of a bunch of dollars you don't have yet. In this budget, you can't look in these envelopes and trust what's there. What do I mean by that? Well, let's say that today I needed to pay my rent. So can I afford to do that? My budget says I've got $850, and it gives me that green light, right? Green means go through that intersection. But if I try to pay my rent today, I'm gonna get T-boned by my bank account, because I don't have $850. My bank account and my budget are living in two different realities. Why? Because I've budgeted all these dollars that I don't actually have yet. So because of that, I can't trust any of these numbers. They can't guide my spending. This is just a fancy list of bills. So what numbers do I look at when I need to make a spending decision? That one. That's the one number I can trust. So then I have to go to the grocery store, look at that number and go, okay, so I need to buy groceries, but I also need to get gas, and I got these bills that are due, and I got to save up for this. And so I think I can spend. That's so much work. That's so much mental energy. And that's carrying so much in your head when you could just budget the dollars you have, pull out YNAB and say, oh, I can spend $100 on my groceries today, still be able to put gas in the car, still be able to pay my bills. When you only budget dollars that you have certainty, you have clarity, and you have the confidence that your budget is operating in reality. So that's why we say only budget as far as the dollars will take you. All right, now I said I was gonna show you how to enter a paycheck. So let's imagine that my wife, Maddie, gets her paycheck today. So to enter that, you're gonna go to your checking account, whichever one it's going into if you have different checking accounts. If she has a linked account, then I can just hit this import button, and so long as her check has cleared the checking account, it'll just into YNAB and I can work with it from there. However, if I have an unlinked account, then I can hit this add transaction button, just like I would with an expense. And this time I'm gonna set it as an inflow. And then those dollars are gonna show up right here at the top of my budget. So I could hit that auto assign button again, but if I want a little more control, do it a little more in a step-by-step way, what I can do instead is I can start selecting these categories one by one. So you'll see if I select these three categories, over here, it actually tells me how much it'll cost to do all three of them. In fact, I can select this whole category group to see what it would cost to fund all of those things. Since I covered most of our bills already, pretty much all of our bills actually, between now and the 2nd, I feel fine just covering all of our non-monthly expenses. Let's go ahead and cover that vacation. Drop a little bit into fund money. And then I'm gonna jump ahead to July, since I think we're pretty well covered for June. So if I hop ahead there, I'm gonna go ahead and I'm gonna do some of our weekly targets. One thing I can do that's really neat is I can do math equations right in the category. So, if I didn't know what 500 divided by 5 was, I could just type that in and there it is. Same thing with transportation. Same thing with church giving. And we can put some into miscellaneous house items. And I think I'll put the rest of this toward my rent. And there we go. I've taken my paycheck. I asked myself, what does this money need to do before we get paid again? And then I assign that according to my goals using that little quick budget option. So that's everything you need to know with regards to a checking account, but what about a savings account? You might be wondering, do I even put my savings account into YNAB? And the answer is yes, so let's do it. I'm gonna come over here to add account, and I'm gonna set this up just like I did with my checking account. Let's say I've got 700 in there. We see that pop up over here, and I've got $700 all in ready to assign. But wait a second, doesn't that mean it's gonna be right at the top of my budget? Wait a second, Ben, these are my savings dollars. I don't wanna spend these on McDonald's or groceries or whatever. I'm saving those. I need to hide them. Well, no, you don't. You just need to ask yourself, what are you actually saving for? And then create envelopes for those savings jobs. So for instance, maybe 500 of this is going to an emergency fund. I can create that category. Fwind. There we go. And put those dollars there. Maybe the rest of it is going towards that vacation I'm saving up for. I can just add 200 down there. And there we go. I've budgeted all my savings dollars. And here's what's really nice. I can trust my budget to protect these dollars for me. Because think about it. The only way money's ever going to leave my emergency fund is if I assign a transaction to it. So if I really think my McDonald's is an emergency, I can assign it to my emergency fund. But there's no way for me to accidentally pull money out of my emergency fund without my consent. So you can trust your budget to protect these dollars for you. And what's really nice about having your savings in YNAB is you get such a clearer sense of your actual financial picture. So for your savings account, add it to YNAB, budget those dollars to savings categories, and then trust your budget to protect them for you. Finally, credit cards. One of the really cool things about YNAB is that it takes your credit card and turns it into a debit card with benefits. You get all the perks of a credit card like fraud protection and rewards, but YNAB actively prevents you from going into debt with these cards and paying fees and interest and all that. So let me show you how that works. First of all, I'll add my credit card to YNAB. If you're doing an unlinked account, do make sure you actually select credit card. It does make a difference. And let's say I've got $500 as my balance. Now, if you have a balance on your card, YNAB will give you a couple options. If you're already planning to pay that off in full, you can just select budget for my entire balance. But if you have a balance that you need to pay off over time, you're going to want to select that first option. When you do that, you're given a couple calculators you can use. So for instance, if I want to pay this off by this time next year, YNAB will tell me how much I need to set aside each month to do that. Now this number is only focused on my balance. We're not factoring in interest. We're not factoring in any other spending I might do on the card. It's just paying down this number. I can also set it where I can just send a specific amount specifically for paying down this balance every month. I'm going to go ahead and do that for the sake of simplicity. So now we've set up our credit card. Our balance is shown right here. And of course it's a negative balance because this is money we owe right now. And if I go to my budget, I see I've got a credit card payment category right there. This number here, which is normally my available to spend, this is how much money I have available to send back to the credit card company for my next payment. So let's look at how we actually spend on a credit card. Whether you are currently trying to get out of debt or whether you're paying off your card in full, YNAB allows you to use a credit card in such a way that you will not be accruing more debt. How does it do that? Well, YNAB does not view your credit card as a debt tool. It's not a tool for spending money that you don't have. When you make a spending decision, whether it's on your credit card or your debit card or with cash, YNAB wants to know how it fits into your plan. So YNAB doesn't care about your credit limit, it only cares about your categories. So if I need to go to the gas station to buy gas, I'm not gonna be looking at my credit limit. I'm gonna be looking at how much money have I set aside for gas for this month. Then if I put it on my Visa, let's say I spend $30 on gas and I save. Let's see what happens. Okay, so I suddenly have $30 available to pay back to the credit card company in my Visa category. How did that happen? Well, when I borrowed money from Visa, I made a promise to pay them back. And YNAB doesn't want me to go into debt. It assumes I'm gonna follow my plan. So what it did is it took this $30 from my gas envelope and just moved it up to my credit card payment envelope, so that when I have to pay Visa back for that gas, that $30 is sitting there ready to go. This is how YNAB keeps you from going into more debt. Because now when I pay this back, I've got all the money I need to cover that purchase I just made. So I'm gonna show you how to make a payment, but before I do, let's talk about what would happen if I just paid back this $30. I started at $500 in my credit card balance, right? And then I threw on $30 for that gas purchase. And now if I pay back this $30, what happens? I go right back down to 500, which is nice. I've prevented myself from going into more debt, but I'm not actually paying down my debt. And that's why this category is still yellow. I'm not yet fulfilling my plan to pay down my credit card balance. I will only do that if I assign $40 to this category. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. I'm going to pull some money from my vacation fund and I'll drop that in here. And now you'll see it's turned green. I have the $30 to cover my gas and I have the $40 specifically for paying down my balance. So then if I go to my Visa account, I hit record payment. I tell YNAB which bank account this is coming from. It's coming from checking. And it automatically puts whatever is in my payment category into that inflow. And if I hit save, look at that. We started at 500. We bumped up to 530 when we pay for that gas. And then YNAB covered that gas for us by moving that money around. And we threw an additional 40 on top of it. So we haven't just gone back down to 500, we're actually below where we started at 460. So this is how YNAB not only keeps you from getting into more debt, but actually helps you pay down the debt you already have. So that's how to set up a credit card, how to spend with a credit card, and how to pay down your credit card. And that's it. That's all you need to know to start YNAB today. If you want to simplify this a bit, every time you get a paycheck, there's a basic 3-step process you can go through. Step 1, enter your paycheck into YNAB so you can start assigning those dollars. Step 2, assign those dollars according to your priorities. Stuff your envelopes wherever that money needs to go. If you're not sure where your money needs to go, ask that question. What does this money need to do before more money arrives? And make sure to only budget dollars you actually have so that you can use your budget as a spending tool instead of just a fancy list of bills. And finally, step 3, follow that plan as you track your spending. And hey, if your spending changes because your priorities have changed, that's okay. Feel free to adjust your plan to reflect your new priorities. If you ever run into a problem, you can always come down to this little question mark and search our library of resources if you want to look information up yourself, or if you need some one-on-one help, you can send a message to our wonderful support team. They are YNAB wizards and some of the friendliest people I know, so don't be shy about reaching out to them. And then of course we have lots more videos here on our YouTube channel if you want to learn more about how to use YNAB, how to budget, how to do personal finance in general. So feel free to explore those. Our goal here at YNAB is to help you take total control of your money. So I hope this video has helped you move in that direction, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Thanks for watching.